What were some of the highs and lows of working, in so many different mortgage companies, and also starting effectively to
have a little bit more healthier approach. I was doing a lot of outside sales at the time, and if you're doing outside sales, that means you're eating on the road.
Yep.
Well, on the mortgage side, I've been out of mortgages for a while,
Hmm.
so most of my stuff is dealing strictly with residential transactional sales.
Hello and welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. This is Nick Shah. Very excited about who we're going to learn from today. Today we have Steve Brant. Steve, how's it going, buddy?
Awesome. For you?
Good, good. Seems like you're also joining us from California. Is that so?
I'm currently in sunny San Diego, and I got my flag blasted in the background in the wind. So that's a shadow you're going to see every now and then. But yeah, having a good time down here.
Sunny San Diego. I love it. I'm in Northern California. I'm in Marin County. We always talk about moving to San Diego all the time because I still think real estate is mispriced there compared to the level of sun and the opportunities you get. But it's hard to leave the Bay Area for now. So, Steve, how do you introduce yourself these days?
Well, that's a hilarious question because I've actually never thought of that. I mean, usually I just say hello to people without going into super detail, but talking about professionally, I'm a founder of a tech startup that is looking to automate. Well, we actually aren't looking to. We do our product automates the offer process, providing more transparency, clarity, efficiency, and results to consumers as well as the agent. And that's been real estate's been a passion of mine for most of my.
Yeah, Offer1 to automate the home buying offer process in a more transparent, more clear, and more efficient way. Want to get into that. Before that, Steve, people really want to understand what you're like before understanding what you have to say. So, what spirit animal or bird would you pick to best describe you and your operating philosophy in life?
I'm definitely a French bulldog.
You were very quick with that. So, what are you thinking there with a French bulldog?
Well, I just think like whenever I see a Frenchie, they just kind of go forward through the world with confidence, regardless of their size. I'm not a big guy either. I'm 5'9". So I think that they seem to be extremely friendly. They're usually not aggressive, but they're just curious and they want to check things out. And they are not afraid to go up to other animals and other people and say hello. And that's probably the culture that I adopt the most, as well as not afraid to go forward new challenges, as well as be welcome as we do that.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. But Steve, you've had quite a significant career trajectory, so far to come to sunny San Diego. You were seems like you were born in, cold suburban Illinois, grew up with Midwestern values. But if you had to recap, the couple of decades you've had in your career so far through a single metric, what would you say that metric is?
I've been involved with over $1.5 billion to close to $2 billion in residential transactions and financings. So I think that's probably been the single largest through point as far as a metric that I can think of.
$1.5 billion in residential real estate financing. That sounds crazy. So let's start with your life trajectory. What would you say has been your broad life trajectory so far that led you to today?
I would just say it's largely been looking at entrepreneurial opportunities. It's interesting. When I was younger, I wanted to be two things that kind of drove me early on. And I don't even think they're necessarily sensible. I looked at what are the two largest purchases a person typically does, and it's usually a car and a house.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how to do that. And that was just from making sure that when I was making those investments or making those purchases, I was making smart choices and good choices for myself. And so, in a weird sort of way, I ended up kind of in that career. I sold cars in college during the off times and then got into real estate not that far outside of as
Wow. Wow. And seems like college was quite a experience for you. Seems like you went to college in Central California, in St. Louis Obispo. Beautiful part of the world. Very sunny, beautiful. And I think they even have their own golf course, if I'm not wrong, or they at least have a pretty good golf team. But seems like during your college you were also there, in the same class or in the same network as the two founders of Jamba Juice. What
That's
was
true.
what was that like? Tell us that story.
That's really crazy because at the time when they first found it, they opened up one little store called Juice Club, what they call juice. And the founder was a guy, was a store, like a cashier at the local grocery store. And he got the money through family and friends to open up a smoothie shop because they went to the only smoothie shop that was in San Luis Obispo and didn't like it, and then they started it. And so we're seeing, it was pretty crazy when you think about it, because it's a pretty big brand now and it grew rather quickly. And they just did a phenomenal job in branding and structure, and realized they kind of had something magical with it, and then decided to share it outside of San Luis Obispo franchising. I actually, was one of my first jobs too, of college, was being opening general manager of some of their Southern California stores. And so, yeah, it was a great experience.
Wow. Wow. And what about that experience clearly stuck with you throughout your professional life?
Mm, well, at the time, I was planning on opening up a healthy fast food restaurant. I thought the market was missing like a full like type of meal, like an alternative to a McDonald's, or alternative to the typical places that we go to, that would have a little bit more healthier approach. I was doing a lot of outside sales at the time, and if you're doing outside sales, that means you're eating on the road,
Yep.
and you want something quick. And I didn't want to just, for whatever reason, a salad didn't appear appealing to me.
Yeah.
And there was actually a place up in San Francisco that I went to, and so my concept, it was a place called World Wraps, and it was in the Marina District. I don't know if you ever went there or
Haven't
remember
yet.
that. I think but they basically made like these essentially burritos, but out of unique concepts. They would be like a salmon, teriyaki salmon burrito, and it sounds gross, but it actually was delicious. I don't know, even that big of and they would have all these different options that were more like these, they call them wraps, and they were like burrito like things that allowed you to take these fairly healthy, nutritious meals on the road. And so my concept was combining that with smoothies into like an all-encompassing fast food, healthy fast food chain. And but I thought you could also build a lifestyle for that, because you could adventure travel,
Yeah.
vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. That actually segued to another business that I started, which was went to start a mass customization of dietary supplements business. And that was like right around 1998, 2000.
Fascinating. Wow. And you know what? I still believe in your core thesis of healthy fast food restaurants. I've been on the road quite a lot, often as well. I've crossed over a million physical air miles and traveling. And you can imagine you end up in a lot of parts of the world where your only options are McDonald's or Subway or Taco Bell. And you really wish there was a alternative, but that wasn't just salads, or somewhat of a hybrid between salads and McDonald's, that was healthy and quick. And it still doesn't exist today. So if you're a founder listening to us right now, you're thinking of something like this, just send me a note on social media, and would love to hear your pitch and possibly fund it, because I still think this is a real opportunity. So seems like you were in the food and retail business for a while. What led your foray into the loan origination business and the mortgage business?
Well, I went to start this restaurant, and I sought out advice from very significant leaders in the restaurant business: the CEO of Taco Bell, the CEO of a chain in California called Claim Jumper, the CEO of Rubio's Tacos. Like there were places that were kind of around Southern California that I could go to, and the CEOs were actually willing to meet with a young guy and talk to the restaurant business. All of them told me to not do it.
Hmm.
All all of them basically said the restaurant's pretty much the hardest business to do. And as a GM, Jamba Juice, even though it wasn't a full service, you were smoothies, but I still saw the challenges with doing it, and it's probably ended up being fairly good advice. Long story short, I ran out of money and I couldn't get the restaurant opened. And so that's when I created this vitamin. And so I created my own vitamin formulas, and the internet was just now, I know this is going to really age me, but the internet was now like becoming a thing that everyone used all the time. And so I was able to sell my vitamins international, pretty crazy, because I don't even know how people found out about it, but I got orders from all over Japan, Germany, all sorts of different. But how that led to real estate is, we were looking to raise money as well. It was right around the boom, and I had a phenomenal advisors. I had the founder of the CFO of Broadcom.com, which is one of the largest chip makers. I had the chief science officer for a supplement company. He was a phenomenal guy, Anthony Almada. And then I had the chief marketing officer from a company called Idea Labs, and they built a bunch of startups in like LA area.
Hmm.
And but this was right around early 2000, in fact right around 2000, when the internet bubble. And so we were going to meet with a company called a venture capitalist. I think it was, I know I'm getting this wrong, but I think it was like Red Stripe or Red, they were a pretty prominent VC, and we had an appointment with them and a couple others at the time, and it was pretty exciting. We were looking at getting funding, and then the bottom fell out, and there's like no money, and I did this all on credit cards. I was like, now what am I going to do? I'm broke. My business is not going to go anywhere. And then I had a buddy on my flag football team. Well, why don't you get into mortgages? That's what I do. And so he introduced me to New Century, and that's how I got into being a loan officer for New Century.
Wow. Wow. It seems like this resilience has been very central to your career, right? From starting multiple opportunities despite failing, to I read somewhere that you took a second place in a wrestling competition even though you had a broken nose, and you were
Yep.
a wide receiver in a football team even though you were only 140 some pounds then. And what has been the core driver, the core fuel behind Aspire that has made you so relentless as a founder?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's just a matter of I don't. I do believe the mantra that the only time you've lost is when
Hmm.
you can go through failures. They can be devastating, and you haven't really lost unless you stop getting up. And so for me, it's just a matter of what my dream might be, and then working towards that dream.
Yeah, absolutely love that. You only we say in our company that the opposite of winning is not losing, it's quitting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you will fail. You're almost guaranteed to fail. There is a 9 in 10 chance you're going to fail, but in those 9 in 10 chances, just don't quit and you will eventually win.
Yes, I agree.
Love that. Love that, Steve. So now let's talk about your nearly 2 decade career in mortgages, right? It seems like you started your career just before the great financial crisis and worked through that, and successfully came out of the other end, and then spent nearly a decade after that doing that as well. What were some of the highs and lows of working, in so many different mortgage companies, and also starting effectively two in-house mortgage teams at really so basically started your own brokerage at two of the largest real estate firms as well, right? So what was that career like?
Well, I got out of, and I don't, I know this is going to make some mortgage people upset, but it was around 2005, and I was working as a mortgage banker at that time. I was actually looking to buy my own place, and it's in San Diego. There was an area, University City, which I really liked, and I thought it'd be great to buy a house there. There's an area next door to that called Claremont. It looked like a great little, and I saw the prices of these houses go like crazy high. And so I looked for a great agent in that area, found the top guy at the time, and had a horrible experience. The guy was a total jerk. Didn't seem knowledgeable. At least I felt like I was more knowledgeable. I'm like, how does this guy have so many signs everywhere? I go, this can't be how real estate's done. And it was. It turns out there's a lot of situations where you have agents that are really good marketers, but may not be that great at the actual transaction problem solving. And so I was looking at making a career change because I really felt the mortgage market was tapped out
Hmm.
and this was a collapse. So In fact, I look at that movie, The Great Short. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
the
look
Big
at that. I
Short.
go, yeah, oh, The Big Short, yeah. And if only I would have had like some serious financial understanding of being and dollars to invest in making some of those. I kind of predicted that that was going to happen, and I went in, left a finance side, and decided to go into building a real estate company, and thought I would like a nationwide type brokerage that would deliver a better customer experience for the buyer and seller.
Hmm.
Uh, and did pretty well. I mean, my first year, even though it was 2008 was our first year, I ended up selling 136 homes. And so
Wow.
it took off like a rocket, and we were probably the beneficiary of a phenomenal opportunity where the market shift from regular real estate to this kind of foreclosure market, and so we were able to provide a lot of help during that time. But yeah, it was a pretty wild ride.
Incredible, incredible. Now, for somebody entering into the mortgage space now, what can they learn from your 1.5, $2 billion of transactions as the things that they should do and things that they should avoid doing?
Well, on the mortgage side, I've been out of mortgages for a while,
Hmm.
so most of my stuff is dealing strictly with residential transactional sales.
Hmm.
So, but on the mortgage side, I do think that the best way, like I look at money as a commodity,
Hmm.
uh, and that again may be an unpopular view in the mortgage world because there's going to be a difference in rates between some folks, and they're going to expound on how their personality or their service might warrant that, but the end of the day, the consumer is going to be locked into for 30 years and have a huge difference in what they're overall paying. So to me, I look at that as like if I were in the mortgage business, I would look to be with that is actively trying to just be super efficient in how they operate and deliver these phenomenal rates. And then you'll have those edge cases where you need to troubleshoot something. But if a mortgage is cookie cutter, why would a consumer pay a higher rate? And
Hmm.
so look to deliver that best value to the consumer, and you'll.
Rates are the king. I couldn't agree more. Now let's talk about the residential mortgage brokerage space. So it seems like you spent a significant amount of your career there. Even
Mhm.
worked with tech startups like Compass. What were some of the learnings in that space that really helped shape your thesis at Offer One?
I think a lot of it was when we were doing that huge amount of volume. At that time, offers were coming in via fax, which was
Hmm.
crazy. We had, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. This was like well past the computer age, but that's how they were being done. And they were usually e-fax, and so I thought it was totally inefficient, and not too good at not trackable. So I switched it to required to emails, and that's now still the standard, and PDFs. And what's crazy is that's still the standard today. Email and PDF is the way people offer on properties. Which is if you're in technology at all, you probably probably makes your head explode. But there are better ways to do it. And the thing I saw happening the most, which was actually just upsetting, really was sellers leaving money on the table,
Hmm.
and it happened all the time. And it wasn't because an agent necessarily got good. It was because they had inefficient tools in order to help the seller to get the last dollar.
Hmm.
Because Nick, you're in real estate, so you probably have dealt with buyers and sellers before, I'm sure, right?
Hmm.
Is that kind of so if you go into a seller and you basically say, who has the power? If there's one buyer, who has the power? You or the buyer?
The buyer.
It's you.
Hmm.
The buyer does.
Hmm.
Now, what happens if you have five buyers offering on your
The
property?
seller.
Now,
Yeah.
okay, so which spot do you want to be in?
Multiple buyers. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So the idea would be that if you're a seller, you want to try to get the most amount of buyers in your property. Now the problem is when those offers come in and they're coming in through this email and PDF,
Hmm.
they get lost, they get mistranslated, they get poorly executed, and the negotiation is very slow because it's very paper based. You have to download, upload, email, doc sign. All these things are occurring. Plus, the contracts themselves are 16 to 20 pages, so you got to go through a bunch of paperwork to make it happen. And we're like, there's got to be a better way. There's
Hmm.
got to be a way where we can make this make this 10x to 20x more efficient. So what might take an agent normally 2 hours could now be done in 3 minutes on our platform.
Hmm.
Uh, for the sellers, when there are multiple offers, they can create a quasi auction on our platform that's totally automated. So provides the buyers with a level of transparency that they've never seen before, and it gives the seller that last nickel of equity that they were leaving on the table previously. And what's even crazy about that is when my thesis about this concept, when I first came to into an idea and shaped into a business, was that we would be getting the seller an extra $500 to $1,000 per transaction. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but on 6 million properties that are sold every year, it adds up. But
Yeah.
the reality is, it's been closer to 10%, Nick, and that's
Wow.
on homes that are between 400,000 and our highest has been a $5 million property. So imagine selling a home for $1 million that you could have sold for 0.2 or 1.1. That's what we were seeing, and that was part of that psychology of allowing the buyers dictate the final sales price versus the seller or the list agent.
Absolutely love that. Like, any headline that says get 10% more when you sell your home is going to get a lot of eyeballs. So for us, you know, seller or listing agent listening to this right now that's highly curious as to how offer one works, how would you explain it to them in simple terms?
I'd say Offer1 makes you superhuman and delivers outsized results to your sellers that will make them love you and will give you the opportunity and the freedom to be able to expand your business to however you want to operate it, but not waste your time on critical but manual tasks that a computer can do and software can do way better. And that's really it's about an efficiency tool, and it's about delivering a superior result, a more transparent result for your client. Nick, I've been involved on both the listing side of a transaction, and I've also been involved on the buyer side of the transaction, representing buyers. And there's nothing more frustrating when you're a buyer agent and you submit an offer and it went into a black hole.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you're like,
Yeah.
you don't even know, did the seller see the offer?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We hope they did. We assume they did, but we don't know for sure. And then once it's in the seller's hands, assuming they do some sort of counter, if you don't end up winning that property, imagine your frustration when it's a home of your dreams and you find out after the fact you lost it for dollars
Hmm.
and you would have for that property.
Wow.
And I've seen that happen. And that happened, like the first case example is it happened with my own parents. I was helping them helping them buy a property, and we came across this home. It was brand new on the market. They haven't had any showings yet. We were driving by it. The sign was up. I knocked on the and I ended up talking to the home seller and said, "Hey, the neighborhood, can my parents see your house?" They did. They went in there, saw the home, loved it. There's this beautiful part, like kind of an area called Olivenheim in San Diego, just a magical area. And we contacted a listing agent, said we wanted to put an offer in. It was listed at 800,000. Told my parents that even though the comps told me that it would be worth like 765, I knew the market was hot. Probably sell closer to the 800, if not. So we offered 795. The listing agent's like, no go. We're gonna wait till the open houses. So they did open houses that weekend, and then Monday gave us a counter, and they countered us a specific price. It said 805 and a bunch of other terms. I told my parents, I said, look, you better agree to, we're competing against other buyers. You better agree to all these terms. So we did. We agreed to every single one of their counter and sent it back to them. And I called and texted the agent that day. It was like a Tuesday. I got nothing on the Tuesday. I called, emailed, and texted the agent on a Wednesday. Nothing. Finally, on Thursday, I'm super frustrated. We don't know. My parents are wondering, like, did we hire our son? Is he the worst agent in the history of real estate? and and finally on Thursday, call, text, email, I finally get a call and they said, "Oops, we went into contract." And I'm like, "What do you mean you went into contract? We agreed to all your terms. How can you've already gone into contract with somebody?" And he said, "Oh, they're at 806. 806. You counted us 805. Why? If you were taking higher offers, why didn't you just tell us to submit a higher offer?" Like so. And the funny part is, my parents were like, "Wow, that's crazy. We would have offered like 820, 825."
Yeah.
And so the problem with this is that the seller thinks they won because they sold for 806 and they listed at 800. But the reality is they could have had at least 820 to 825 on that same property, and they lost 15 to $20,000 because their agent wasn't willing or capable or had the know-how to do this type of negotiation. And so it was like moments like that that kind of just stuck with me as pain points to motivate me to deliver a solution that would benefit everyone.
Incredible, incredible, incredible. So, would it be accurate to summarize that by making the offer process transparent and almost like an open auction, the chances of getting multiple offers and buyers bidding up each other increases exponentially? It's just pure human psychology. And that makes this offer one, using offer one as a part of your home listing process, a no brainer. Is that the right summary?
It's a pretty good one, though. The one correction I would put, Nick, is that it's not a true transparent auction, meaning that you don't see all the terms of every offer. What we do is on the first offer or second offer, you see that there's an offer submitted if you're another buyer. You see that there are offers in on that property, but we show the highest price after the third offer's been. And we did that specifically after testing to prevent downside risk, meaning if the first offer comes in and it's a lowball offer, it's going to upset the seller. It's going to upset the agent because now that's public, and now that may be a psychological factor to encourage other buyers to offer around that same lowball number. But when they don't know, we found that after this third offer comes in, people know the ability to throw in a lowball when there's this much interest on a property. And so we show the highest dollar amount for that offer. And so that's produced this outsized results. And when it's a competitive nature like this, if a buyer happens to not get the property, they really know about themselves if they weren't able to offer what ultimately ended up being the amount. So I think it may not be a great consolation prize, but I think it's better than feeling the anxiety of the unknown. Why was my offer not selected? I have no idea, because you don't know until after the property's closed what the final sales price was, and that could be 30 to 60, 90 days now.
This is absolutely amazing, Steve. I love it. So, are there any risks of using Offer One? I mean, it seems like you've built the platform around the psychology of offers, and you have so much experience there. But for listing agent listening to this, should they be aware of any risks?
Yeah, there's definitely the risk. The largest risk I see for a listing agent using offer is it's going to take a lot of work off their, and surprisingly enough, that actually is a worry.
Hmm.
Like when I first came in to real estate in 2008, it was the early days of Zillow. And that was a huge worry for agents because they were saying, well, now my customer doesn't have to go through me to see the properties. They can do it through these other websites. Well, through information, access to information, I think that's power, and it makes the agent more efficient because back in those days when a buyer would come into my office, they would say, I'm thinking about this general area. We'd set up a search and whatever. But now they would come into my office and say, I want to see these four properties because they've already done the research online. So that's taken a lot of off that agent's plate. And now the agent can focus on higher value activities for that customer, looking at ways to help provide that customer with maybe ideas for remodeling or properties, or understanding different financing elements that may be available to that buyer. And so it allows them to become more efficient with their time. But I do think sometimes taking work off your plate, it scares an agent because they think, well, the consumer's not going to see value in me. And I think it's the opposite. Your job is to provide the best possible experience and out for your client. And that's what
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And over time, yeah, I mean, some people, agents are, that worry about their work getting reduced and then not getting compensated enough, need to structure their agreements with homeowners where they get compensated more when a home gets sold for higher than list price. And that is, win-win for everybody. And, if you're a homeowner listening to this that's thinking about selling your home, strongly consider telling your agent to use offer one as a part of the process because it will make home buyers, compete with each other on their offers and potentially drive up your home price. There are no guarantees obviously, but sending brand, getting your selling agent to collect all the offers and hide it in their inbox is not going to make the process any better. So why not give offer one a try? I love it. Now, Steve, what has been your aha moment of scale at offer one?
I think was it's case studies. So
Hmm.
basically, like seeing this property for a few of the early transactions that we would our auction is like setting a highest and best due. And so what would happen is, let's say we have four offers on a property. We set a due date of when all the final offer from the buyer is due, and let's say it's 3 days in advance. And in that time, our system allows the buyer agents to automatically edit their offer. Since the consumers have access to the platform, the buyers and sellers see what's going on with their offer through the seller, seeing what's going on with all the offers presented. And what has been crazy is that a lot of times in the early days, it still happens, is sellers won't wait till the end of the countdown to select the best offer they want to go with, because we'll have some outrageous buyer come in there with a term that is well exceeding their expectations. So they don't want to lose that buyer, so they'll jump on it. So we had, I would say, a good 35% of the transactions on our platform never go to the end, because there's a buyer that is so interested in this property, they're willing to not offer like $1,000.
Hmm.
They're willing to offer 50, 60, $100,000 above the next highest offer.
Hmm.
Phenomenal contingency terms and things like that. So that was probably the biggest aha moment. Of like, holy cow, I didn't even anticipate that.
Hmm.
I assumed it would be different. So it's just it's kind of seeing different ways that it actually interacts with how people buy and sell property.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, for a seller's agent listening to this right now that is clearly inspired, how should they think about working with a company? Like, what are the next steps they should take to start working?
I would say certainly go to our website. We have a little bit of details there, but you can just reach out to me directly. I'm a big fan of agents that are proactive. I want to do what I can to help grow their business and help them expand and help them become more efficient and help them produce superior results. And trust me, when you're a listing agent going into a listing presentation, there really isn't a ton of differentiation between you and many other agents, because you all have the same syndication. You all can print out beautiful flyers. You all can make nice little videos. You all can use Matterport, but there aren't too many that are using an offer technology that ensures the seller sees every offer and helps them to get to that last dollar in equity while making your life easier. So
Hmm.
reach out to us. You can go to offer1.com. You can reach out to me directly. It's steve@offer1.com, and I'm happy to share with you what we're doing and how you might be able to your business.
Absolutely. Love it. Steve, what's the story behind naming the company Offer One?
Mm. I actually started out with a first company name called Instabid. That was the
Hmm.
company's
Yeah.
name. And my thought was like just creating an eBay for real estate. That was
Hmm.
like the idea. So I thought Instabid, and I was able to. A lot of what I name companies is based on what domain I'm able to buy.
Yeah.
And so I was able to buy Instabid, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, it's not. You can do regular real estate. It's not always about auction on our form. It's an option that you use, and so I need to have something that makes it not sound so salesy. And so I looked for something that I felt was strong and had dual meanings. You have offer the one, it's offer, and you won an offer. So
Yeah.
I thought it was available. I ended up buying it. That's history.
Oh, so the one is like homonym for one, WON.
Yes,
Got
yes.
it. Oh, okay. Yeah, so offer1.com. Yeah, now that makes sense. Now that makes sense. Steve, I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions. So, what do you know about the home buying and selling industry that would surprise most listeners who are not as aware of it?
I would say it's massively chaotic,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of scrambling behind the scenes and a lot of low technology tools that are ripe for innovation within our space. Deliver a easy button for the real estate transaction. Hopefully that will be helpful.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. People really, assess their agent on a lot of different metrics, but the truth is, like, then agents struggle like a lot of others, and they're probably struggling with really bad technology, so they're not probably as efficient as you are. Now, coming back to your investment hat, if a family office calls you and says, Steve, we want to invest $100 million in real estate across anything in real estate, including prop tech technologies, how would you advise them?
Well, I definitely say if they want the biggest return, invest in offer. Um, Cut that would be the first check you cut.
Yeah.
After that, I'm a big believer in real estate. In fact, that's our theme. Our we have like a motto said freedom through real estate, and a lot of that involves around financial freedom.
Hmm.
If you look at people who come to this country, immigrants, one of the first thing they do is they want to buy real estate. Why? Because it's not that easy in their country.
Hmm.
And so they realized the power of owning that property and what that property can. The only reason I'm really able to start this company because I have some properties that help cover my basic mortgages and expenses while I'm not taking an income, building on Offer One. So I think I would tell that investor with $100 million, you'll get a 10x return on Offer One. So let's put a couple million behind that, but let's go straight to some multifamily opportunities in various states and really have a diverse portfolio in different locations, but all focusing on residential because that's never.
Absolutely love that. What's your own real estate portfolio like these days, Steve?
I have a few rental properties as well as my personal residence, and like I said, I've been involved in lots of different things on the investment side. I've done a number of flicks and flips.
Hmm.
I've done a number of developments. In fact, the house I'm in right now was a redevelopment of a house that was really built in 1906, and it's been fun. It's been a fun journey, and but I do encourage people. I asked my parents because my parents have never. Why didn't you? And their saying was, well, they don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night to fix a toilet. And I'm like
Hmm.
that. That may have happened once. I don't even know it has. That's like the greatest fear of an investor, that they're going to have to deal with tenant issues, and it couldn't be the opposite. It's you really your hard work is finding a good tenant, but once you find a good tenant, or if you do a vacation rental, it can be really turnkey and just be an awesome cash flow for you. That's also developing an equity portfolio for you as it grows.
Yeah, completely agreed. I just don't understand people who sell positive cash flowing properties just because they had to deal with one or two property management costs. I mean, you can probably just offset some of that cost by hiring an amazing property management team rather than losing this. Your real estate is really for buying, not for selling, unless it's a really bad real estate investment. Yeah.
You brought up a great point. I'd love to actually learn about your investments too, because I'm sure you have some good stories. So I don't want to. I know you've been like letting me hog this channel, but I'm yours. So if you want to go into that, you can. But the one thing that I thought was really unique that an investor told me, I had an investment property and it was positive cash flow. It was at a condo that I bought for 100 and I think 75 at the time, and then was probably worth like I ended up selling it at 500. But in that time frame, an investor, I was kind of bragging because it was so cash flow positive. I was making like an extra $500 a month or so. But this investor goes, "Well, you just missed you missed the idea entirely, Steve." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, that's great, but you have $350,000 of debt equity in that property that could be producing income for you too." But what do you mean? He goes, "You should be selling your place. That's a $500,000 place and levering up and buying $1 million place that's producing a higher cash flow." And I never thought of that. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, that's genius. And so, anyhow, that's kind of an insight. If real estate, if you're planning on selling, do it to try to buy other real estate. But to your point, I agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you do have to sell real estate, especially if you have over concentration of your wealth in it and you can't really move it around. But as long as you can try to just keep buying and holding real estate, and especially once it's cash flowing, it's like selling off a bad investment. I'll tell you more about my real estate investments offline. I can go deeper into that. Right now, I just love to keep the spotlight on you. As you think about Offer One, Steve, and your aspirational goals over the next 12 months, what are the biggest challenges you're trying to solve in terms of scaling your team or operations?
the This is it's been a shock to me, and it's also probably our biggest challenge, and that is introducing change. Agents are so adverse to change, even if it's better for that I would have never thought possible. Like
Hmm.
I thought, if I presented a better mousetrap, that an agent would hear about it and realize, yeah, PDF and emails aren't really the best way to probably receive offers. What do you got? That is an uphill battle. So that has probably been the biggest eye opener to me, is that it does require a level of sales and persistence in order to communicate the messaging to the agents to eventually get them to give it a shot.
Yeah, and it
Um,
seems like the recent settlement by the National Association of Realtors, which happened, on March 15th earlier this year, which still hasn't been approved by court, has brought a lot of change to agents' lives. How has the reaction to Offer One changed since that settlement?
well, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty in the middle. I think originally the National Association real estate and all the various local associations were spinning it as if it's just a procedural change.
Hmm.
And the change is so significant that I think you have dramatic impacts on how are bought and sold. Our technology kind of fits right in there, allowing that transaction and those transfer to it. But I really think they underestimated what that level of impact was, because I think it's going to be very, very, very substantial. And it's going to be painful, quite frankly, for a lot of agents that aren't prepared.
Hmm. Yeah. Agree. Agree. Last question, Steve. If your loved ones agree to be mentored by you, what's the most important skill you would teach them? The number one skill you would teach them?
Oh, that's a great one. I think it's a. I hate to answer in a combination because you asked for one. I'll give you one, but I actually think
Yeah, I'd
they'll
love to hear
come.
them. Yeah.
Uh, so one is, I think it's important to have a dream.
Hmm.
And once you have, or vision, whatever you want to call it, a goal, dream, vision, one of those things. I think it's important to have something to towards or view your life in. And then I think it's important to act as if towards that fearlessly.
Hmm.
And that would be the biggest advice, because I think a lot of times we let our own fears or self doubts or self talk convince us that maybe something isn't worthwhile, or maybe we can't do it. We don't have the right skills. We're not the right age. We're not the right color. We're not the right sex. Whatever may be the case, that might prevent you from forward in a goal or dream. And that's why I would say would be the best thing is to first have that dream, and then don't let anything stop you in your.
Absolutely love that. Have a dream and then move forward towards it fearlessly. Don't let anything stop you. That was Steve Brant, the founder and CEO of Offer1. He's a French bulldog, moves forward with confidence regardless of how you feel about his size. He's friendly and curious and not aggressive at all. If you're thinking about listing your home and want your home buyers to get a transparent experience into what offers are being put on your home and potentially put them in a competitive situation so you can get the highest dollar for your home, check out offer1.com. If you're a real estate agent interested in using this, send Steve a message on steve at
At all.
offer1.com. This is Nick Shah. If you ever want to talk about real estate, shoot me a note on CEO at home.llc. Thank you.
Nick, thank